Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight into it. So today's lesson is on the origin of the zodiac signs. This is based on the question that the brother Jason Smith is everything asked. He said, "Great lessons. I appreciate that, brother. Can you do a lesson on the origin of the zodiac signs? Would greatly appreciate it." And then let's also read this comment too, under from Joe Moreno. Shout out to you, brother. Joe Moreno 144. He says zodiac signs go back to the worship of Nimrod, his mother, wife, and Cush. The Bible tells you not to worship the hosts of heaven because that's what the heathen nations were doing. So I agree with Joe Moreno, but you can even take it a step back. Most people don't realize, but Adam was really the pre-Diluvian or the before the flood figure that the other nations happened to worship because of his rebellion of the Most High in the garden. All right, that's really where the origin of zodiac signs come from. And to some of you guys that's newer to this information, it may sound a certain way, but we'll go through here and talk about it. But I do agree, the worship of Nimrod. I mean, you have Orion, which we're about to read here in just a second, which is called the hunter, right? And Nimrod was described as a mighty hunter in Genesis, the 10th chapter. So he's definitely on point here. Joe Moreno is. So let's go into it. Let's start here. I'm gonna start here in Job chapter 38. As we should know, Job chapter 38 is where the Most High was going through and getting Job right. Like basically, the Most High was on Job's head, basically telling him, "Hey, you ain't the Most High. This is me. I did this. Can thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion?" Just basically going through and saying, I'm the one that created this, not you. You don't know more than me. So if you haven't read Job chapter 38, you definitely should read it. But for the sake of the lesson, let's get straight to the point. I'll read Job chapter 38 and 31 again, and then we'll go to verse 32. Well, and 33. Okay. Verse 31, it reads, "Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion?" Verse 32, "Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons?" Verse 33, "Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth?" So that's why the Most High is asking these questions. All the answers of these questions in this chapter is no, at least for Job. But I want to focus on this word here, Mazzaroth, that we see in verse 32. So if we go to the Strong's definition of Mazzaroth, is Strong's H4216, Mazzaroth. And it says here, Mazzaroth, and the definition says the 12 signs of the zodiac and their 36 associated constellations. So the Most High was saying here, did you create the constellations? All right, at least these constellations, because a lot of the associated constellations with the quote unquote zodiac signs, or what we call the zodiac signs today, they're visible to the eye. That's one of the reasons that you have the worship of the zodiac signs today anyways, is because a lot of these zodiac signs are visible to the eye. And what does that mean? Well, man had vain imaginations, right? Or like in Psalms chapter 2, why does the heathen imagine a vain thing, right? Let's get that. And the people imagine a vain thing. Let's get Psalm chapter 2 and verse 1. "Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing?" Okay, the people, the nations, and of course, Israel too as well. We imagined vain things. We imagined gods, all right, or at least in the pagan circle. The belief is that if you had a mighty man on earth, or even woman too, of course, or a mighty figure on earth, that when they died, they would be transcended into the stars. So when you look up at the stars, that was the transfiguration of whoever that mighty figure was on the earth. Like again, for Orion, that's believed to be Nimrod, who we read in the Bible known as Nimrod, or in the Egyptian circle known as Osiris. Okay, that's where all of these zodiac signs come from. It's nothing but an imagination. It's nothing but a vain thing. Okay, but that's why in this society they get us to worship these things. Okay, and they do it so loosely. Now, what surprises me is, from a surface level, is that there's so much more information going out about zodiac signs nowadays. I'm seeing so many people, even so-called Christians, really speaking out against it. It's something else, because when I came up, pretty much, well, at least from the perspective the Most High gave me, I didn't see anybody, excuse me, I didn't see anybody talking about that, like, at all. When I say talking about that, meaning talking about how zodiac signs were wicked and you should not call yourself, any type of sign, and, so on and so forth. I just didn't see that at all. But a lot more people are coming out and saying that, because it just makes sense. Like, why would you call yourself a Leo or a Cancer or Sagittarius and all this other stuff if it's not outlined in scriptures to do so? Matter of fact, it's directly against the scriptures and the teachings. All right. And it tells you not to do so. And it's blatantly and obviously there. So why are we still doing that in this society? Well, because this society is literally ran by Satan. All right. And pretty much everyone that's watching this video already understands that. It's just a lot of us don't understand how deep that really runs. You can hear that. Yeah, this is Satan's kingdom. You have to truly understand what that means. All right. And why this world, this current society, not just here in America, but throughout the entire world, why it's going through a certain vibration. Okay. It's all done on purpose. Now, if you make it out, and, you keep the statute, laws, and commandments, you have to understand how much of a blessing that really is, because everything is geared towards the left-hand path, literally everything. All right, but let's get a little bit more. We're going to talk more directly about the origin of the zodiac sign, because that's the main thing that I picked up from this question. The brother here didn't say, like, could we talk about zodiac signs, or how do the zodiac signs correspond with the scriptures? He specifically said do a lesson on the origin of the zodiac signs. So we will talk about the origin of the zodiac signs, but let's get a little bit more on what is even his zodiac, or the zodiac signs, right? All right, so this is the Wikipedia page on zodiac. The zodiac is a belt-shaped region of the sky that extends approximately 8 degrees north and south celestial latitude of the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun across the celestial sphere over the course of the year. Within this zodiac belt appear the moon and the brightest planets along their orbital planes. The zodiac is divided along the ecliptic into 12 parts called signs, each occupying 30 degrees of celestial longitude. These signs roughly correspond to the astronomical constellations with the modern names: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. The signs have been used to determine the time of the year by identifying each sign with the days of the year the sun is in a respective sign, which is going off. All right. To tell the time of the year, all you need is the sun and the moon. That's outlined in the scriptures. Okay. That's how it's supposed to be. However, as we see here, the so-called signs are used to determine the time of the year, just like the days of the week are all named after pagan deities. The days of the month, at least based on the main calendar that's kept in this society, is all pagan gods, all of them. And we're going to talk about the quote unquote god Janus for January, where we get January from today. All right, that's one of the main gods that was worshipped in Greece and Rome. Okay, but either way, that's exactly why this was done. Okay, it's just a vain imagination. That's where the origin of these signs come from. They were visible in the sky. All right. One, you would have people ascribe to these different visible signs, or at least visible stars. All right. And then all at the same time, even if it wasn't ascribed directly to a person, it was ascribed directly to a belief, to an ideology. And that's another thing when it comes to the society. That's another thing that a lot of people don't realize how deep it really runs. Okay, what we call the Babylonian mystery school system, and what that is, that in itself, we'll talk more about it. We're going to talk more about it just in a second, but you have to understand, like, when it comes to these signs, all right, I did a very rough, just so I can have notes, I did a very rough overview of what all of the 12 signs actually means. I wrote it right here on this Google Doc. And I don't think we have the time to go into every one of these, but you have to understand when it comes to all 12 of these signs, all right, you don't want to think about it from a physical standpoint. All right, Aries, yet Aries is, a representation of the various ram-headed gods, like the god Khnum, known in Egypt. Okay, but you don't want to think about, okay, a ram-headed god, just a physical illustration of a quote unquote God, or a God that has been worshipped by the nations. It's more about the ideology behind it. It's more about the philosophy that is involved with these different gods, what they stand for and what they mean. And it all goes back, again, we're talking about the origin here. It all goes back to the fall of man. All right, what we call the fall of man, it all goes back to the man Adam. Because once Adam rebelled against the Most High, right, which was more than likely by worshiping the different various stars and planets, right? Because one of the earliest gods that were worshipped was Saturn, all right, which used to be visible to the naked eye. All right, that in itself showed the nations that, oh, we can rebel against the Most High too. That's why you had in Genesis, the 11th chapter, you had Babylon. You had the other nations coming together. Even, of course, this predates Israel, but you had even the sons of God, all right, which became the sons of men at that time. All right, go to Babylon and create a rebellion there. That was led by, and that's why it was called the Mighty Hunter, which was led by Nimrod, okay, and his father Cush, which he mentioned here, Joe Moreno mentioned here, okay? So maybe that's a lot for somebody that's not familiar with the material, but again, we'll talk more about what I mean by everything I just stated there, okay? First of all, let's go to the worship of heavenly bodies, all right? And we see that being used in the scriptures, right? The heavenly bodies, or the hosts of heaven, really. All right, what is that? So it says the worship of heavenly bodies is the veneration of stars, individually or together as the night sky, the planets or other astronomical objects as deities, or the association of deities with heavenly bodies. In anthropological literature, these systems of practice may be referred to as astral cults. Yes, you still have astral cults today. All right. Let's see. It says the most notable instances, of this are sun gods and moon gods and polytheistic systems worldwide. I did a lesson on the various different sun gods and how they worship today, and in a sense, the moon gods too as well. I believe that was the lesson on the worship. What do I call that series? That's one of my favorite series that I used to do. I want to start back that series. The worship agenda. Yeah, the worship agenda. The woman worship agenda, which talked a little bit about the different moon gods and how the woman is ascribed to the different. You had different women or different deities that were ascribed to the moon. Okay, and you had certain men or male deities that were ascribed to the sun. Okay, for the various different attributes that come with the sun. Okay, all right. It says here, also notable are the associations of the planets with deities in Sumerian religion and hence in Babylonian and Greco-Roman religion. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Yeah, these were some of the main planets that were worshipped. Okay, and you have different gods just directly named Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. But then within that, you have a whole system of various gods depending on the region that were named or were at least they come from these different planets. Okay, even if they're not named Saturn, like the god Pan in Greece, he was basically a different version of Saturn. Okay. Gods, goddesses, and demons may also be considered personifications of astronomical phenomena, such as lunar eclipses, planetary alignments, and apparent interactions of planetary bodies with stars. You see, that's what it's really about, the personification of the astronomical phenomena. Okay, what does that mean? Again, when let's just get a little bit more. Let's get a little bit more. All right, let's get a little bit more. And this here too, really quickly, and then we done here. The related term astrology. You have idolatry, astrology. You put them together. Astrology usually implies polytheism. Okay, polytheism, of course, is a worship of multiple gods. All right, some Abrahamic religions prohibit astrology as idolatrous because it is. Pole star worship was also banned by imperial decree in Heian period Japan. It is idolatrous because you're making these figures to be gods. And what is a god? A god is a power. All right. Anything that you put as a power, that's what the word God means, power. And when you say that you're a Cancer or you say you're a Gemini, so on and so forth, you're saying that that planet or the constellation that sign is ascribed to, you're saying that it has power over you. It can tell you your personality. It can guide you. All right. More importantly, it can guide you. And if you believe that, then you believe in another God, which is literally idolatry. The number one sin that you can commit that the Most High ain't playing about. Okay. The first commandment, have no other gods before me. This is literally against it. Okay. And I think everyone watching this pretty much understands that, or no, I won't say that because, you could be, quote unquote Christian and they don't push this in the church. So you may not notice, but that's exactly what it is. But I wanted to go here really quickly too. Just really quickly. So the Google search here basically says, in the ancient world, could people see stars and planets a lot more visibly? And AI here says, yes, you are correct. The belief is that people in the ancient world, especially in areas with less artificial lighting, experience significantly darker night skies, allowing for a clear view of a much larger number of stars and planets compared to what's typically visible today from urban or suburban areas. What does that mean? So if you've ever been to an area that's extremely dark, and that's why when they go and they're trying to look at the stars, even if you're doing it, not on some pagan worship type stuff, you just literally want to see the stars, you would have to go to an area that's dark because it makes the light a lot more visible, therefore being able to see a lot of the different constellations in the sky. All right, but since there's so much artificial lighting, it's much harder to see the sky than it was in the ancient world. But in an ancient world, all right, especially before the flood, you could see the night sky a lot better before you had all these different night lights and skyscrapers and all these different things that meant artificial light. All right. And because the ancients, they could see all of the different planets and constellations a lot better, that caused them to imagine a vain thing. Okay. So that's where a lot of this comes from. All right. Just the people literally creating their own gods. But again, not for no reason. There was a reason that this was done. They didn't just look up and say, "Oh wow, here's the planet Mars. Mars is the god of war," for no reason. Like there was a reason behind all of these different creations. And when I say reason, not a righteous reason or something that actually makes sense, but I'm just saying based on their ideology, based on their belief, it makes sense to them. Now, this article here basically says the stars are disappearing before our eyes. So I went to find the darkest skies left. Of the 10,000 or so nights I've spent on this planet, I've never seen a completely dark night sky. This doesn't make me unusual. In virtually every city across the United States and increasingly across the developing world, street lamps, outdoor signs, and car headlights are shining 24 hours a day, drowning out the stars above in a dull orange glow. For years, I've written about astronomical phenomena like meteor showers. But the sad truth is that, like most of the people reading and sharing these articles, I can barely see what's described in them. Light pollution isn't exactly breaking news, but by nature, it's a problem that obscures its own severity. So basically, this person is going into exactly what we were just talking about. They call it light pollution, all right, where the artificial lights are blocking the night skies, all right, or blocking your view of a lot of the planets, because all of the planets that we just mentioned here, or at least mentioned, we just looked at here on this page on the worship of heavenly bodies, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. You could all see these planets with the naked eye. No problem. All right. No problem every night. So this led men to, go astray. All right. But let's go into the scriptures, talk about where it's outlined. And then I want to talk about, then I want to talk more about the actual origins and where I just came with everything I said about Adam and how, this all goes back to the Babylonian mystery school system and the various other systems of worship of the left-hand path. But let's go to it. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 19. And lest thou lift up thine eyes into heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the host of heaven, shouldest be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided into all nations under the whole heaven. Why would you even have this here if people weren't doing it? Obviously this was a thing that was done by the other nations, because I've said this before. If you look at the law, a lot of it is written based on what not to do with what the other nations were already doing. Okay, so they were eating the swine, or they were eating, multitudes of fish without fins or scales. Okay, they were committing all types of sodomy, all right, all types of fornication. That's why you have Leviticus, the 18th chapter. All right. And it tells you not to do what the other nations behind you and ahead of you do. Talking about the Canaanites, which Israel going into the land, right? They were going in to the land of Canaan, which was later known as Israel. That's a lot of the things that they were doing, and the Egyptians behind them, which, let's go there real quick. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am the Lord your God. Verse 3. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall ye not do, neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. So this is the ordinances of the nations. Okay. Planetary worship, the worship of the stars, that they align to the different philosophies and ideologies of the world that we still see today. It all connects. Okay. But this is exactly what the other nations were doing. Okay. They were worshiping the sun. They were worshiping the moon and the stars and the hosts of heaven. All right. But we're called not to do this. You see, it's a commandment to not do these things. And that's why it says, lift up thine eyes into heaven. Because again, you can look straight up into the sky and see these things. Okay, when it says heaven, it's not talking about where the Most High resides. It's talking about the skies. Okay, lest thou lift up thine eyes into the heavens or the sky, when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, shouldst be driven to worship them and serve them. If you call yourself a Aries or you call yourself whatever, you're worshiping this planetary body, the host of heaven, whether you know you're doing it or not. All right. And again, I think a lot of you guys understand that. So this is more about the origin, but at least, we still need to get it. All right. Let's get Deuteronomy chapter 17 too as well. We'll go straight to it. Verse 3. And have gone and served other gods and worshiped them, either the sun or moon or any of the hosts of heaven, which I have not commanded. Well, way before Diddy got hemmed up, I remember, he had a post. I was trying to find it, but I don't know where it's out on the internet now, especially with all this stuff going on. Well, with him, but he had a post or like a video where the sun was out and he looked up, and the regular audience probably thought he was talking about the Most High, but the camera flashed to the sun and he was like, "Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God." Something like that. I explicitly remember seeing that post on this page, but it's been quite some years now. It's been like, before COVID or something like that, like 2019, something like that. He did that. Now, the audience thought that since the camera was pointing upwards, that he was talking about the Most High, but he was talking about the sun, literally. And he said, "Thank you, God." All right. The other nations and the wicked of our people, they literally worship the sun. They literally worship the moon, all right, in the different constellations, all right, because it is, a great creation from the Most High. It is a thing to behold. But obviously, you're supposed to be worshiping the Creator and not His creation. All right. Well, a lot of us, that's obvious, but to the other nations and to our people that's uninformed, we don't really understand what that means. Okay, and how deep it really runs. But we've been commanded to not do these things. All right. Job chapter 31 and 26. If I beheld the sun when it shine, or the moon walking in brightness, and my heart hath been secretly enticed, or my mouth hath kissed my hand. Verse 28, this also were an iniquity to be punished by the judge, for I should have denied the God that is above. You deny the Most High when your heart is secretly enticed to worship the sun, to worship the moon, to worship the other heavenly bodies, okay, or the host of heaven, which is the different stars and various planets. That's the hosts of heaven. When we read hosts of heaven in the scriptures, that's what that's referring to. All right, this is what I really wanted to get into here, Romans chapter 1, because it really breaks down, what the people did in the creation of the various pagan deities. All right, let's start at verse 18, Romans chapter 1. For the wrath of the Most High is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Verse 19, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God hath showed it unto them. Verse 20, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Verse 21, because that when they knew the Most High, they glorified him not as the Most High. All right. Neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. It's like just be making up stuff. And the other nations, they made up these gods because it was already known even before Israel, before the flood, who the Most High was really for. He was really for one set of people. It was already known. This is not something that is new. It's not a new thing on earth. It was already known that the other nations, their gods were idols. Book of Psalms, chapter 96 and verse 5. It reads, for all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. The gods of the nations are idols that they created themselves through a vain imagination. But again, when it comes to the mystery, all right, a mystery is something, hard to be explained or hard to be understood. All right, at least it's difficult to see exactly what's going on with a mystery. The mystery is that these different gods that were created all represent sin. It all represents turning away from the Most High. All right. And that's why they have created idols, because they knew, or the other nations did, they knew that the Most High was not for them. They already knew that. Okay. So when, like a Christian or whoever, when they say that, the Most High is for everybody, or God loves everybody, and all these different things, it runs a lot deeper than what people realize. All right, and that's why I'm not moved by these things, because I understand how it truly works from its foundation. All right, when I say that, I truly understand. Just meaning, I understand that it's deeper than just, God loves everybody and God only loves Israel. It goes a lot deeper than that. And the worship of the left-hand path by the nations has been going on for thousands of years, and it will not change. All right, until Yahushua comes back and stops all that nonsense, and all the other nations will be forced to worship the Most High or be destroyed. That's what the scriptures say. Okay. It says the nations will be angry in Revelation, the 11th chapter. Okay. And they're going to be angry because they're going to have to worship the Most High. All right. And his son, where all of them are just hell bent on worshiping their various pagan gods. All right. And it's what the pagan gods represent than the God itself. So when you think about a pagan deity, again, you don't want to think about just, they worshiping this God just to worship it. It's what the God represents. That's the mystery. Okay, that's the next level of understanding, is when you understand what it represents. Okay, they're not just worshiping Osiris or Dagon. We read that in the scriptures. They're not worshiping these things just to worship them. It's about what it actually means to worship these different gods, or what it stands for. Just like the different 12 signs, they all stand for a different aspect of idolatry, essentially, of turning against the Most High. Like literally, the scorpion is literally just means turning aside. The scorpion walks like left to right, or turned aside, and that's what sin means. Sin literally means turn to a side, right? And that's why the scorpion was ascribed, all right, to the sign that it was ascribed to. Which sign is the scorpion again? That's exactly Scorpio. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Scorpio. All right, and that's what the scorpion represented. Okay, turning aside or sin. That's what it literally means. All right, so that's why these things are pushed on us. Okay. Verse 21 again, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as the Most High, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves, verse 22, to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things, like a scorpion, okay, like a goat, all right, like you see with Capricorn, all right, the water goat. These things all mean something. All right, that's what I want you guys to take away from this lesson is that these things actually mean something. All right. And change, when I say mean something, meaning they represent a philosophy and ideology, okay, to the other nations and those of our people that believe in it. Okay. But anyways, verse 23 is saying, change the glory of the uncorruptible God, all right, the Most High, into an image made like to corruptible man. So you see different images, different deities, all right, like quote unquote God Saturn. There's an image of a man attached to that. Hercules, Zeus, all these different men. That's a corruptible man. And to birds, you mainly see that with the Egyptian mythologies. All right, and four-footed beasts, also the Egyptian mythologies, but also the other nations too as well. The other regions of the world have ascribed different pagan deities to four-footed beasts and creeping things. Okay. Wherefore the Most High also gave them up to uncleanness through the lust of their own heart, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. So the Most High gave them this spirit to do these things. Okay, so we could see that only one nation will run away from these things and never pay them any attention. The virgins, right? Like we read about in Matthew, the 25th chapter. That's going to be the elect of Israel. Going to be the only people that don't fall for the lust of their own heart. Okay, verse 25, who changed the truth of the Most High into a lie and worshiped and served creature, excuse me. I'll start from the top. Who changed the truth of the Most High into a lie and worshiped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. So this is exactly what happened. The creature is not just referring to an animal too, right? It's also the sun and the moon and the hosts of heaven. It's also the creature, which the people have worshiped more than the Most High. All right, people read their horoscopes, quote unquote horoscopes, more than they read the Bible, right? They understand horoscopes more than they understand the scriptures, right? Again, if you read a horoscope and you saying, "Oh yeah, see, it says that us Leos are brave and we're honest and we like to," man, all that nonsense. If you throw out a bunch of stuff, obviously something will stick to you depending on how you view yourself to be, right? And that may just be based on how you view yourself to be. But if you throw out like 20 different things, maybe 1 to 5 of them, you may feel like you are, but The truth is the 100% truth. You know, it got to be truth all the way around. If you read a horoscope, it literally has to describe you to a T. And obviously, people are all not the same just based on what month they born in. That's just obviously just nonsense. It makes no sense at all. Let's get Isaiah chapter 47. Let's start at verse 10. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted me. And thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. Verse 11, therefore shall evil come upon thee. Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee. Thou shalt not be able to pull it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. We getting closer to the point, verse 12. Stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries. Oh, this is sorcery. Wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. Verse 13. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. So you see, it says the astrologers. Okay. Now, one thing of note here, our forefathers used, some of the hosts of heaven for signs, as it was called for us to do in Genesis, the first chapter, right? Verse 14. We'll go to that really quickly. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 14. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. So the lights of the heaven, the sun and the moon, are supposed to be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, but they're not to be worshipped. Okay, so there is a difference between astronomy, all right, and astrology. Astrology is where you take it too far and you worship these deities and you ascribe these different characteristics and attributes to the host of heaven. Astronomy is just more of the study of the host of heaven, but for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Okay, just want to make that clear here. So astrology is what's going off. All right, so let's go to the astrologers. The Strong's definition here, H1895. It says to divide, to be an astrologer, heavens, to be a horoscopist. Now you see. So this was already addressed in the scriptures to not be a horoscopist, or it says a monthly prognosticator. All right. Those who divide the heavens for purposes of augury. All right. Do you know what augury is? Or it says augury. Augury was a Greco-Roman religious practice of observing the behavior of birds to receive omens. When the individual, known as the augur, read these signs, it was referred to as taking the auspices. Auspices means looking at birds. Another word for an augur can be translated to one who looks at birds. There was recently a series on Netflix called The Resident, I believe, or something about Resident. I'll go to it here in a second. But there was a so-called black woman. You know what? Let's just go to it. Make more sense of it. So this show here it was on Netflix. It appeared on there not too long ago. The Residents, starred by this woman here. She was an augur. Okay, if you watch the show, this woman was an augur because she used Basically, the series was trying to tell you that she was an augur. She used the flight of birds to determine the future. All right, that's how she solved mysteries, is by using the flight of birds. That's why she was a bird watcher. If you see here, you see the birds in the background, and you see her with the binoculars here and the birds. If you watch this show, you'll see she was an augur. All right. So an augur is someone that uses the flights of birds essentially to determine the quote unquote future, or to determine an omen, which is against is obviously against the scriptures, right? Because you're basically saying that they're gods or they can guide you. Okay. These are things that's been done by the other nations for a very long time, as you see here. Okay. So that's one of the definitions or the words that comes from the translation of astrologers here. Okay. Well, let me know if you watched that show so you can see what I'm talking about. See, they were basically telling you that she was an augur. All right. They throw these things out there like that all the time. And a lot of times we don't know what we're looking at. But most shows that you see, they have some type of pagan undertone to them, unless, whether you know it or not. Most of these shows that blow up on Netflix or what have you, they have a pagan undertone to them. All right. Movies, shows like The Sinners, whatever, it's always some type of pagan undertone to them. All right. So next we have the word for stargazer that I went to here, which is H2374. See what stargazer says. It says a seer, see, agreement, prophet, stargazer, vision, a beholder in vision, but not in a righteous vision, right? Not a vision given to you from the Most High. All right, a vision of the left-hand path. All right, what's made in the vision? Oh, connects them with Sheol, i.e. by necromancy. Okay, and that's the worship of the dead. All right, necromancer. It says a seer, prophet, a word of the silver age of the Hebrew language. All right, a covenant, but this is all referring to the left-hand path here. All right, at least in this definition that was used here. Okay, so a stargazer is like what you would have on the right-hand side with a seer or a prophet, but on the left-hand side, it uses things like necromancy, all right, to quote-unquote determine the future. And then we have a monthly prognosticator. That is a horoscopist, okay? A monthly prognosticator. That's what it means there. It's using monthly because what? That's what the horoscopes go by, right? You got a daily and you got a monthly horoscope. All right. But the scriptures obviously is directly against that, telling you not to do so. Okay. Because verse 14, behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it. Again, this was all done on purpose. All right, these different philosophies of the different zodiac signs, all done on purpose to throw the people off, okay, and to put them into sin. All right, but now let's talk about the origin. Where does this come from? All right, did someone just randomly make up, these zodiac signs for no reason? They just they looked up in the sky and they just randomly said, okay, well, let's make Scorpio a scorpion. All right, let's make this that. Let's make Leo a lion. These all meant different things, are tied to ideologies, but all of these ideologies root in sin. And what is the root of sin? What we call the quote unquote fall of man, which is really the fall of Adam in the garden. All right. Now, when you had the serpent, all right, this is why they worship the serpent, is because the serpent was able to bring the left-hand side ideologies to Eve, which therefore Eve brought it to Adam. You understand? That's why they worship the serpent. This whole event here in Genesis 3 was worship. It still is by the nations that created gods based on different ideologies and philosophies that came from sin. That's the origin. That's the true origin of the zodiac signs. Okay. So let's get Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, where it all started at. Or at least the idolatry started at. So verse 6 in Genesis chapter 3. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and we do understand that this was not a literal fruit that Eve ate. It was referring to the ideologies of the left-hand path, which was, again, more than likely referring to the hosts of heaven or the worship of the hosts of heaven. All right, read on. And that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Verse 7, and the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. It's all symbolic for other things that the apron and them being naked that I really don't want to mention because I know I'll go into a tangent. But verse 8, and they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves. Saturn is called the hidden god. You understand? So what does that mean? The hidden god. They got this from Adam, and this was passed down even before it was written. This was verbally passed down by all the people that Adam hid, meaning he tried to just go amongst all the regular people because he was shamed. Okay, themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. That's the people. The trees are men. So he tried to just assimilate with the rest of the people Adam did. Okay, but you have the different gods, all right, like Saturn, that was created behind a philosophy or the ideology of hiding from the Most High. That's what it means to be the hidden God. Hiding from the Most High, hiding from the statute, laws, and commandments, and doing your own thing. The key tenet of modern day Satanism is what? To just be your own God. All right. They're like, we don't really worship Satan. It's not about Satan. It's about being your own God and making your own laws. Or another modern terminology for that is the Lema. Okay. The Lema, where Nike gets just do it. Okay. We'll go to that really quickly because I'm bringing it up. The Lema is a Western esoteric and occult social and spiritual philosophy and a new religious movement founded by the early 1900s by Aleister Crowley, which I believe that a lot of brothers and sisters don't know who this man is, but you should understand who he is, because a lot of what we see today, from the various pagan beliefs, it came from him. Again, this is more modern, right? So early 1900s, but he is the man that was responsible for reinvigorating a lot of the pagan occult beliefs. Aleister Crowley was. Okay, an English writer, mystic, occultist, and ceremonial magician. Okay, central to the Lema is the concept of discovering and following one's true will, a divine and individual purpose that transcends ordinary desires. Crowley's system begins with the Book of the Law. Okay, a text he maintained was dictated to him by a non-corporeal entity named Awas. Awas was just you could ascribe him to many different pagan deities, but Awas was more than likely just to him the pagan god, the Egyptian pagan god Horus, something like that. Anyways, this work outlines key principles, including the axioms. This is what I wanted to get to. This is exactly what I want to get to here. Okay. This is the philosophy of the world, okay, of Satanism, of this country, of America, of the entire planet Earth right now. All right. The axiom, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. So do whatever you want. That's why they always pushing that. You can love whoever you want to love. You can go wherever you want to go. You can do whatever you want to do. It's up to you. It's freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of this. They're telling you to just be your own God, which is idolatry. You understand? All right. That's what this here is what we're reading is truly what the origin of the zodiac signs are. They all point back to this. All right. You have, because that's what the mysteries are really about. You know, hopefully somebody understanding that. That's what the mysteries are really about. That's what the deeper underlying meaning of the zodiac signs are. They all turn back to this. Different philosophies, different ideologies. Okay. And all rooted from the first sin, the creation of death. Okay. Do your own thing. Don't follow the Most High. Be like Adam. Be like Eve. That's why they worship. Eve is called the mother of all, right? That's what Eve means, mother. Well, you have the different mother goddesses, all right, that are worshiped, and it goes back to Eve. Not just Eve, of course, because there's different women that that worship actually comes from. But either way, it all stems back to Eve because she was the first one to eat the fruit of the serpent, aka the philosophies of the left-hand path. Okay. But the axiom, do what thou wilt, shall be the whole of the law. And love is the law, love under will, emphasizing personal freedom and the pursuit of one's true path. Rebel against the Most High. Don't keep the statute, laws, and commandments. Just forget about him. Do whatever you want. You can be your own God. You can create your own path. You have free will. You know, there is no true free will because you read the scriptures, Proverbs 20 and 24. It's the Most High that designs your path. Okay? You understand that? There is no personal freedom and pursuit of one's true path. It's only the Most High's path. That's it. Proverbs 20 and 24. Man's goings are of the Lord. How can a man then understand his own way? How can he understand his own way? How can he pursue one's true path? Okay. And this love is the law, love under will. That's a lot deeper than what it sounds like too. That means any type of love between man and man, you know, men and men, women and women, all right, women, grown adults and children, you know, adults and animals, within your own family, you know, like the brother mentioned that Semiramis, which was Nimrod's wife and mother. He married his mother, man. You see, because he stood for these different ideologies like the Lema that says love under will. Love is the law. Love under will. Any type of love you want. And everything is love, but that's not love. Right? We know that. But that's what these ideologies say. Okay, and that's truly what the different zodiac signs actually stand for. They're physical representations of these different ideologies. Okay, again, that's the main thing that I want brothers and sisters to get from this is that, you know, it's not just about the physical star or the physical Aries, Taurus, Geminis, what they actually stand for. Okay, they're just different parts of different ideologies. Okay. But it all comes back to one key root. Okay, that's what polytheism is all these different gods and goddesses that all make up really the same thing. It's just telling you not to worship the Most High. All right, you can do whatever you want to do. That's a simple way of putting it. But again, like you have the hunter. Okay, you have Libra, you have the Capricorn, you have the different water gods and goddesses, right? It all pretty much say the same thing. And that's what it all goes back to. And let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, to illustrate that, what I was just saying. Okay, it says, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 27. For the worshiping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. The worshiping of idols. Okay, that was the beginning. So you had Adam and Eve. First Eve, of course. And Adam more followed Eve than he did the serpent. And he knew he was off. He knew it was wrong, but he still did it, following his woman. Okay, but that was the worshiping of idols. That's the beginning of sin, the worshiping of idols. Okay, the different zodiac signs. But again, why do the nations even worship these things? It's because they stand for things that are contrary to the scriptures, because man wants to do their own thing. They want to live under the philosophy of the Lema. Get it? They want to do everything that's opposite of the scriptures. And that's what these zodiac signs really actually mean. Okay. Let's read Revelation chapter 17, and let's get verse 5. It says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Mystery Babylon. Why is it a mystery? The mystery is that these things will be portrayed as being righteous. These different philosophies of men will be portrayed to be righteous. You'll still be considered to be a good person. It's not a bad thing. Oh, it's nothing wrong. You can love anybody. You know, all these different things are made to be righteous. Like the scriptures say, let's go to Isaiah chapter 5. Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. That's what this society is. Okay, it's where you can go and evil is called good and good is evil. Right? You gotta keep the Sabbath. Oh man, this brother in a cult. This brother going off. You know, man, you can't eat shrimp, man. You can't eat this. That's those Israelites, those Hebrew Israelites are teaching you this evil doctrine. You understand? The evil is called good and the good is evil. That's what the mystery is, though. The mystery is that it's hidden. The truth is hidden, and not only just hidden, is made to believe that you are doing the right thing. Okay, and a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of people that understand that they going off, and that's the straight Satanists, straight Luciferians. They understand what they doing is embracing the left hand path, but most people that are actually Luciferians, they don't even understand that. They don't know. Like you think that a Christian goes to church just like you, if you were one, or if you were into Islam or whatever you embraced prior to the scriptures. Like, did you think that you were doing evil? No, and that is the mystery. The mystery is that you will do evil and feel good about doing it. You will feel good about going off because it's portrayed to you that you're doing right. All right. But there are ways that seem right unto a man, thereof are the ways of death, though. Right. Proverbs 14 and 12. There is a way that which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. That is the mystery. It will be portrayed to you that it's right. There's nothing wrong with having a zodiac sign. Everybody has one. They use numbers because they know that human psychology, we're going to immediately assume that something is correct just by the amount of people that believe or, you know, or do something, right? Like with quote unquote Christianity, put in quotes, but Christianity, it's said that there are what, like 3 billion Christians, people that identify as Christians. I mean, that can't be right, right? I mean, that's almost like 50% of the population, dang near. So all of these people, all these billions of people, they can't be wrong, right? That is the mystery. That's the mystery of Babylon. You get it? And that's the origin of the zodiac signs. It's just one way, because there's a million different ways to get you to believe these different doctrines. All right, but they can't tell you directly. When I say they, that's not how Satan works. He's a deceiver, right? So he doesn't directly tell you these things a lot of times. All right, but he's going to put things in a way to where you believe it's right. But there is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Okay. Now, if we go here to the book, The Two Babylons, I want to just show you here where this book is also illustrating what I said about the man Adam. I'm going to read this paragraph here. I'm telling you, like, if you want to understand more about the different things that you see and how it relates to the left-hand path, this is the book to read. I mean, it definitely is. There is a lot of information here. When you read it, like, oh snap, I never thought about that like that. But I'm going to read this paragraph here, but you also can see here it says, as identified with Janus is the number of man and amounts exactly to 666. That's what the 666 actually represents. I think I said this recently in a video too as well. I saw like IUIC, I believe, do a video on what they believe that 666 actually represents. And I believe that was off just, I forgot exactly how they said it was something, but 666 goes back to the worship of man, or the worship of the various pagan gods, like the god Janus or the god Saturn, the quote unquote hidden god. And that number amounts to this. So, but anyways, number of man. But let's just keep going. That's another topic. But it says here, but there is something further still in the name of Janus or Enos, not to be passed over. Janus, while manifestly worshipped as the Messiah or God-man, was also celebrated as Principium Decorum, the source and fountain of all pagan gods, of all the pagan gods. We have already in this character traced him backward through Cush to Noah. But to make out his claim to this high character in his proper completeness, he must be traced even further still. The pagans knew and could not but know at the time the mysteries were concocted in the days of Shem and his brethren, who through the flood had passed from the old world to the new. The whole story of Adam, we're getting to the point here, the whole story of Adam, and therefore it was necessary, if a deification of mankind there was to be, that his preeminent dignity as the human father of gods and men should not be ignored. All right, I'm going to summarize this in a second. I'm getting to it, y'all. It says, nor was it. The mysteries were full of what he did. The mysteries were full of what he did. The mysteries were full of what Adam did. That's why, again, you have various gods just based on the ideology of hiding from the Most High. That's why you have Saturn called the hidden god. You get it? It's just not about the planet Saturn. It's just not about the image that's ascribed to that deity Saturn, but it's also about, or not also, it is truly just about hiding from the Most High, which means what? Just not following the statute, laws, commandments, or just finding your own path. You get it? That's the mystery. If you want to know the mystery, that's the mystery. Okay, at least part of it, because, it's a lot more than that, but I'm just simplifying it. It's a lot more than that. But anyways, the mysteries were full of what he did and what befell him. And the name Anush, or as it appeared in the Egyptian form, Fanash, the man, was only another name for that of our great progenitor. The name of Adam in the Hebrew of Genesis almost always occurs with the article before it, implying the Adam or the man. There is this difference, however. The Adam refers to the man unfallen. Eanush, the man to fallen man. Eanush then as principium decorum, the fountain and father of the gods, is fallen Adam. What it's saying here is that the foundation of the different pagan gods goes back to the fall of Adam, because this is where sin came into the world, and all of the pagan gods really goes back to sin anyways, right? So you get it? Let me know if that makes sense, y'all, because I'm trying to explain it the best way I can, but obviously this is something that you have to break down multiple times, but this is where you got Zodiac signs from in the first place. You get it? Okay, Nimrod was after the flood. He was the man that was worshipped after the flood. Adam was worshipped before. He was the man that was worshipped before the flood by the nations. And why was Adam worshipped by the nations? Because of the sin that he brought into the world, which they vibe with because they know that their gods are idols. You get it? Like I said, I had the different pagan deities here pulled up. Let me know if you want me to do a part 2 to go more into individually what the different pagan gods mean, or what they represent, or which god they assign to, so on and so forth, in ideology. But it's all just a vain imagination. All right. So as Jay Moreno said here, the signs go back to the worship of Nimrod, his mother/wife, Semiramis, and Cush. But also even before that, it goes back to Adam and Eve, which were the mother and father of sin from the standpoint of they brought sin into the world. Okay, that's the origin of zodiac signs, but that's pretty much it, brothers and sisters. Lord willing, this was edifying. Let me know if you want me to do a part 2. Lord willing, this was edifying. Until the next time, I bid everyone a mighty shalom.